Hello, my name is Michelle Marcus, and I'm a Senior Change Management Leader at Point B. My experience helps clients harness the power of their people to achieve transformational outcomes. I'll be presenting part one of our topic of leading people through change, the change curve. In my experience, organizations go through change when they implement new structures, systems, or even when they grow. The change curve is a great way to anticipate and prepare for how stakeholders in an organization will be impacted by any change. We will cover an explanation of the term change management, a brief introduction of how to lead people through change, and a description of different tactics that may be employed to support this journey. Let's dive in. Change management includes the processes, tools, and techniques that are used to help people change in the context of an organizational project or an initiative. The goal of change management is to increase the potential success of a project or initiative by helping the people make the transition from their current state to the future state required by the change effort. Helping stakeholders adapt to the change is a stressful and challenging aspect of leading projects and is often the key differentiator between success and failure of your efforts. Change management is not a replacement for your existing project management tools, but instead should be added to your project management toolbox. Leveraging these tools should increase the potential for success in your current and future projects. We all know how to put tasks in a work plan, measure progress, set predictable outcomes, and hit milestones. But truly leading change is more of an art than a science. This art is what makes leading change so tricky and difficult. The framework we'll describe, called the change curve, should help bring out your inner artist. Some of you may have seen this change curve or similar frameworks before. The change curve helps 1. Assess where a particular person or stakeholder group is in relation to the change. 2. Confirm where we need them to be. And 3. Understand the journey they must take in order to get there. I'm going to take a few minutes to define the mechanics and stages of the curve, review its key elements, and then describe how different stakeholders move through the curve. Let's look at the mechanics and stages of the curve. The vertical axis is performance. You can expect to see a decrease in performance by the stakeholder group going through the change. The length of time the group's performance is diminished, the horizontal axis, is directly related to how well this journey is managed. There are 5 stages to the change curve. To the left, we begin at unaware. At this stage, the stakeholder group does not realize that a change is coming. At aware, there's realization that something has or is going to happen. This is where the rumor mill starts. There's lots of chatter about what somebody told someone. Next, we move to understand. At this key stage, the change is no longer conceptual to the stakeholders. They begin to understand what the change means to them personally and professionally. At acceptance, stakeholders begin to take action related to the change. For example, in a system implementation, users will go into the system and perform the new tasks they were trained to do. Or at the process change, new roles and responsibilities are followed in the appropriate sequences. Lastly, with buy-in, we see sponsor-type behavior. There's positive energy and messaging about the change. They enthusiastically commit to the change and inspire others to reach acceptance. In addition to these 5 stages of the curve, let me touch upon a few additional key elements. A frequently disruptive element of the change curve is the valley of despair. This is when there's a dip in productivity due to doubt, fear, rumors, bargaining, and resistance. The valley is natural, and it's a common phase. The leader's job is to move people quickly through it. It occurs most typically between aware and understand. Another dynamic to the curve is that stakeholders can move back and forth horizontally on the curve. Say that one day we're told there's going to be an organizational change, but our team won't be affected. We most likely would move from aware to understand pretty quickly. Then the next day, an email announces that our team is now part of the organizational change and will have a new leader. We'd quickly slide back down to the valley of despair, questioning the change and worrying about whether or not we'll get along with the new leader. Let's explore how different stakeholders move through the change and how leaders can influence their trajectory. How do we influence how stakeholders move through the stages of the change curve? Well, from unaware to aware, it can be as simple as informing stakeholders that a change is coming. As more details are shared about the impact of the changes on the teams and individuals, stakeholders will begin to move to understand. To influence the movement up to understand, leaders need to answer specific questions about what the direct impact is to the stakeholders' worlds, both personally and professionally. If leaders provide no or ambiguous answers, it's likely that forward movement will cease. Acceptance will occur when what leadership said would happen does happen. Leaders should follow good standard communication practices by keeping an eye on consistency, sharing key successes, and being honest about what isn't working and why. Note the final stage of buy-in on the curve. Buy-in is not the same as acceptance. Buy-in conveys a higher investment than acceptance. You actually don't need to get everyone to buy in. Should your sponsors be bought in? Absolutely. Generally speaking, though, most stakeholders need only to accept. The success of projects depends on people following through with their new responsibilities, performing new tasks, and using new tools available to them. Those are actions and behaviors that we expect to see at acceptance, not buy-in. So what else can we learn about how stakeholders move along the curve? You should anticipate that stakeholders will be at different places on the curve at any given time. In addition to managing that variation, there are a few important groups to pay critical attention to as they move along the curve. One group is the sponsors of the change. It's vital to understand where sponsors of the change are on the curve and to work to keep them ahead of the pack. Otherwise, the pack will end up leading themselves. Another group to monitor carefully are the early adopters. These are staff who are first to jump on the bandwagon and are willing to help or contribute however they can. They need to be recognized, encouraged, and rewarded, as well as occasionally reined in. And finally, the inhabitants of the Valley of Despair need expert attention. Perhaps it's their nature to be a critic, or maybe they've experienced changes that have failed in the past. One way to bring stakeholders out of the Valley of Despair is to harness the energy of the early adopters, or perhaps identify key influencers, such as organizational change agents, who can answer questions and address the concerns of those in the valley to help them move out of it. And sometimes it's purely a matter of waiting and seeing. Time itself can be a useful tool. The last thing that I'll emphasize is that the change curve does not imply that a stakeholder is in a right or wrong place. It's a tool for understanding people's behaviors, why they're acting as they are, and how to help them behave as you need them to behave to successfully implement your change. So in conclusion, I'd like to quickly recap the topics of today's presentation. We learned that the definition of change management is the processes, tools, and techniques used to help individuals transition through the change to the new state. And we learned about the change curve and how people must move through it at their own pace. Thank you for tuning into this topic. Please consider looking at part 2 of this series on change strategies, where we'll explore different change strategies and look at different factors that influence which one to use. If you have any questions about how Point B can help your organization navigate the complex issues of change, we look forward to hearing from you.